Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now we've taken a look at this game on this chip before, but that was just with 8 GB of RAM. Now this time around we have 16 GB, but what you see on the screen is actually the amount of RAM that the game itself is currently using. Now you can't compare the RAM usage between the two videos right now because this is actually reading out a completely different reading in terms of RAM usage. It's actually just reading out the RAM usage of the game itself. So it's not comparable at all to what was going on in the other video. The other one was just kind of just showing full system-wide RAM utilization. But here the game is running at 720p with the lowest in-game graphics, which are essentially labeled as medium. And the performance that we're getting in here is actually pretty decent, but there is some very noticeable problems in the sense that a lot of the textures and models are very low quality, and it kind of makes the experience of playing the game very rough. It's by no means awful, but it can definitely take a lot of the impact and weight of a lot of scenes, and it's something that I wish we had the performance headroom to actually be able to fix here. This is really just the most ideal way of playing the game realistically though. You can of course turn things up to 900p, but you're really at that point pushing things in terms of being able to actually get a consistent and smooth frame rate. I think that this is pretty much the best compromise you can make in terms of actually having this be playable and enjoyable. Though I could understand if the lower quality of models and textures can be very off-putting to the point where you might just decide to not play the game on here. It's definitely one of those things where it's kind of making me feel like not playing the game on this system, but it's definitely not a terrible experience. And if I was a kid and this was the only way I could play this game, you better believe I would have had a blast playing like this. I have played other Star Wars games as a kid at way worse performance than this. The Battlefront being like the main one where I just sunk so many hours into that game, and I was just running that at like 15 frames per second. I remember back then I would use fraps, so I have no idea what the 1% lows were like, but the averages I was getting was 15 frames per second, and I was having a blast. If I had this as a kid, I would have had an amazing time. I never would have complained. I absolutely love the level of performance that we can get out of these cheap systems, because honestly, when I was in high school, when I first started high school, the PCs that were in the market in this price range, $400 to $500 price, we're pretty much talking about dual core, no hyper-threading, i3. Maybe you're lucky if you got an i5 U series, which means we're talking about a dual core here. And for the most part, this price range was just completely flooded with old bulldozer era AMD APUs that in terms of GPU performance were fine enough for like League of Legends and like maybe Minecraft at the time, but they were just held back by the worst CPUs humanly possible. It was absolutely brutal. Like back then, APU systems were just starting to pop up, and it was hard to make a justification for them just because the CPU performance was so bad and the GPU performance wasn't so groundbreaking that it like changed everything. But the APUs that we have nowadays have me the most excited I've ever been for PC hardware, really. It's the fact that we're getting very decent levels of performance at the most entry level. And speaking of, I actually recently managed to get my hands on a system for a bit of time, so it's not forever, it's not going to be like a long-term thing here, but for a bit of time I'm going to have a system that actually has one of the more recent super low-end Pentium, actually the Pentium N 5095. And this is a very interesting Pentium because you can find it on very low budget systems, and I'm very curious to see what the iGPU is like in that, because I mean that's a very low-end system paired with dual channel 8 GB of RAM. Might be interesting to see what kind of performance we can get out of it and what games we could realistically play on it. So if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe. That's going to be coming out very soon. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.